Hey folks, before we begin today's episode, I wanted to let you know I'm open to new opportunities this summer and fall of 2024. If you're looking for someone who has an expertise in Swift, whether it's iOS, watchOS, TV, Vision, macOS, or server-side Swift, reach out to me. You can find me at brightdigit.com and you can reach out to me there, or you can just email me, leo@brightdigit.com. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of today's episode. Welcome to another episode of Empower Apps. I'm your host, Leo Dion. Today, I'm joined by Dezmond Blair. Dezmond, thank you so much for coming on.
Leo, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here today.
Congratulations on your Swift Student Challenge win. You have been working through the Apple Developer Academy and you had an exciting time at DubDub. And so today I just wanted to talk a little bit about your experience there. But before we begin, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, sounds good. So as you guys know, my name is Desmond. I have been in computer science for about a year now, mostly working in app development. When I was about 21, I went into computer science. I received my associate's degree. From there, I transitioned to development. I transitioned to IT. Did that for a time, realized it wasn't for me, and thankfully found out about the Apple Developer Academy, where I am now, and have spent the last 10 months doing app development.
Awesome. So let's start off by talking about it was interesting. You said you did IT, and then that wasn't for you, and then you went to do you want to join the Apple Developer Academy. What was kind of the decision? How'd you come to that decision, and what was the big difference, I guess, between what your IT work you were doing and the Swift work you were doing at Apple Developer Academy?
Yeah, of course. There's a big difference. Actually, I was doing IT contracting for some time, and I realized as much as I love helping people and as much as I love doing what I'm doing, I felt creatively, what's the word? Kind of just like I couldn't express myself, you know? Everything was always done by the book, by the rules, and you have to go step by step with a lot of people to make sure, why this isn't working and helping people fix stuff. I realized that, like I said, I wasn't really expressing myself creatively. And so, because I had a degree in programming already, I figured, let me look for different options. Let me look for different options where I can express myself and where I might be able to actually start developing things and making projects that could, help people. Um, Thankfully, I got accepted into the academy. There is a 1 month program. It's called the Foundations program, and that's actually what I'm teaching now. However, for the Foundations program, it's just a 1 month version of it to kind of see if it's right for you. Through that 1 month program, I got to work with some really amazing people, built an app called Reminiscent. Um, and from there, like I said, my journey's just been all iOS.
So, in case people were wondering, you're in Detroit. We're specifically talking about the Apple Developer Academy in Detroit. We were just talking before the show how I had Sarah Greiter on a couple of years ago talking about it. So, what was your biggest surprise, I guess, getting into the Apple Developer Academy and that experience?
Yeah, and just so I can clarify for the audience too about what the program is and kind of what we do there, it is a 10-month course meant to train you to become a world-class developer, as the Gilbert Family Foundation puts it. So we spent the last 10 months doing about 6 challenges. Each challenge, we are creating an app. They don't have to go on the App Store, however, these apps are what you use for your portfolios, all these projects. You're working with different people constantly, and you always have a great team of mentors who are there to help you during every step of the process. And so when I first did the foundations program and I was introduced into this environment, I was enamored. I mean, honestly, I had not seen such passionate people in such a great big space before, and having that and seeing that passion from everyone else really is what inspired me to continue in this journey.
So, what I'm always curious, what were like the first things that you learned, or what were the first big challenges that you faced getting into iOS development?
So I'm lucky enough that we offer this program here in Detroit. However, my biggest challenge was self-learning. At the Apple Developer Academy and all the academies around the world, what's really pushed is CBL, challenge-based learning. And so
Okay.
the mentors aren't there to hold your hands or teach you these complicated topics. They're there merely to guide you in the correct direction to find out more about certain topics.
Okay, interesting.
And so a lot of it came to my own self-discipline, my own learning, and really taking out of the program what I put into it. And that's something all the mentors would say as well. You know, you get out of this program what you put into it. And so even past my learning there at the academy with the 10-month course, I also decided to join a boot camp on top of this course, just
Nice.
so that I could further my education in iOS development. Yes, and two
Well,
boot camps.
what was the other boot camp, if you mind me asking?
Yeah, so the first one I did was the iOS Accelerator course from an organization called Codeco. And
Yep.
the next month after that, they actually started the first Vision OS bootcamp. And so, literally right after doing the iOS Accelerator, I jumped into Vision OS.
What was your aha moment or like the moment that amazed you in regards to doing iOS development?
One of my big moments was actually the first challenge that we did. So after doing the foundations course and then getting into that 10-month course and doing our first challenge, I got to work with some really passionate people, a really great team who kind of let me take charge on the direction of the development. What we ended up doing was like a really nice app for Academy learners where they could then see all of their fellow students, see their class roster, all in a beautiful deck of cards organized as a contact list would be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let's get a little bit more into what your interests are as far as in iOS. What are some things that you think, as somebody new to this, what are some concepts or APIs that you're like, man, I wish I saw more of that, or I think there should be more of that, either from like the app, what's on the App Store, or from as far as educational material out there. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think I see what you're saying. Because I had had a significant problem also finding different learning resources prior to doing those boot camp learnings. And so what I would have liked to see more of is actually something that I did a lot of the Swift playgrounds. They
Okay.
were a really great resource for me to get in and start learning, as they have a lot of great beginner content for someone who's never coded before in their life, or for someone who is like me, transitioning from a coding degree. However, I've never learned Swift before. And so what I did was the Get Started with Apps course on Playgrounds. And that's
Okay.
really what enlightened me on kind of the different capabilities of what we can do in the iOS ecosystem. I'd like to see more people playing with kind of the different animations and stuff that are available in courses like that, because
Yeah.
I feel like it's underutilized in a lot of the apps that we use. And the ones that do it right are the ones that succeed. For example, Duolingo. Their animations are smooth, clean, beautiful,
Yes.
and people rely on this app merely for those animations alone. So
What was I was gonna say, like, do you still use playgrounds at all, or do you? How do you? Where do you see playgrounds in the learning experience? Because, as you probably noticed, like there's certain limitations as far as what you can do in playgrounds.
correct.
Do you think they're like good for? Do you think they're just good for like raw educational material? Because there is some stuff you can do in playgrounds as far as like creating, I don't know, like a playgrounds file that you can deliver and show people how to do stuff, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean, and that's a really great part of the Apple Developer Academy as well. Is just past those. So to answer your question first, Playgrounds is a great first step. I think that's like where you get your feet wet before you dive into the world of iOS. And with being a part of the Apple Developer Academy, we had mentors who would create those custom playgrounds to excel our learning. Those are what really helped me in my journey, at least, to thinking of myself as a developer. They would include little challenges in there, kind of like leak code challenges and stuff like that. That when I did it, and without the help of, internet or anyone else, like I truly did feel like a good programmer at the time, because I was able to solve those challenges and solve those problems without, any assistance.
I do want to keep talking about playgrounds because it interests me as an educational tool.
Hmm.
How far do you think one can get in playgrounds before one just needs to start getting into Xcode
I mean,
when it comes to learning app development?
Leo, I'll be honest with you. For the foundations, that 1 month course, I coded my entire app in Swift Playgrounds.
That's awesome.
And
Okay.
honestly, yeah,
Okay.
I think that was production ready. And so I think there's a lot of capabilities just as long as you have somewhere to start, somewhere nice and easy to start.
Oh yeah, because like Xcode is overwhelming, and
Very.
I always feel like when I want to teach somebody, like yeah, there's a lot to Xcode.
I understand. Yeah.
So what came first, DubDub or Coding Mentor?
Coding Mentor came first, although it was still after I won the Swift Student Challenge.
Okay, well let's talk about what should we talk about first? Winning the Student Challenge or DubDub?
Let's do
Or
Coding
excuse me,
Mentor
Coding
because
Mentor.
let's do the Coding Mentor first because I had something I wanted to add on to the fact that you said about the about Xcode specifically.
Yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Um, it's part of my course actually to teach Xcode to the students as part of the foundations program. And honestly, I always tell my students like, just do playgrounds first. You could code your whole app in playgrounds and then just transition to Xcode when you're ready, because it
Yeah.
is a big learning curve. Having students who even are already computer science majors, when they see an environment like Xcode, they're like, this is way different than any other IDE we've ever worked with or anything like that. And
Yeah, it
so
is.
there's actually a learning curve to just Xcode alone, which is why I tell my students just start with playgrounds. You'll be okay.
Yeah. So as far as code mentoring, like besides hand holding a little bit on Xcode, what did you learn? What have you learned from that experience now that you're on the other side of the table, so to speak?
I've definitely learned a lot about people and about how much you put into something. When I see my students, when I see that passion in them, the same passion that I had when I first came into the program, when I see that passion in them, it elates me. It makes me want only the best for them, and I feel really proud for my students a lot of the time because I see them doing such amazing work, in my class, and I'm impressed. I end up learning from my students sometimes more than I have on my own journey.
Um, what are you surprised that was a big challenge teaching your students or mentoring your students, I should say?
Um, Two things. One is building relationships. Part of the foundations course and part of the developer academy in general is that you're always going to be working in groups. It's a big collaborative effort, and getting people together actually is a lot harder than I thought it would be. um, as far as coding wise, we have a pretty challenging curriculum for them, and so I believe the hardest part is definitely when we get to we structure it in weeks. So week one is when we're going over the CBL process, helping them find an idea. Week two, we're going over design, helping them, figure out what they want the app to look like. Week three is coding when we get to actual development. Setting up a backend, setting up a database solely using Swift ends up becoming a big challenge for a lot of the students because they can't really conceptualize view models or and Swift data alone isn't really quite there yet towards making stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so I've started to introduce that as a supplement to view models and observed environment objects. However, it's still quite a challenge to get front end coders to learn the back end, essentially.
What are you writing your backend in?
So like I said, we use only Swift, and so we'll use just a lot of stuff like state objects, environment objects, and if applicable, then we'll use a Swift data model.
Okay. When you say backend, you mean like the data end on the front end, right? Not like server per se.
No.
Okay.
We definitely, with the foundations course only being a month long, we don't
I was gonna say.
encourage students to set up something, on the web or use third-party frameworks at all, really, just
Yeah, yeah,
because it
yeah.
becomes very complicated and it becomes a lot more learning on your own self, to
Yes,
be able to do
yes.
something like that. However, one
Yeah,
student
okay.
we did have set up a Firebase backend for their app,
Okay.
and that was really impressive to see.
Yeah, or you could do like one of these mock node servers that just spits out stuff from a Rust API that's
Yeah.
fake or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. What have students when they get into the class, they're like, I want to make blah 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 app. What are they mostly saying? What kind of apps do they want to make?
So, I mean, I'll be honest. I've seen a lot of budget apps. I've seen a lot of travel apps. That's another very common one. And this all goes through that collaborative process. People get together, and all of them have all these different ideas that they kind of want to work on. And when they're trying to find one thing that they all want to work on, it always ends up being something. What's the word? Uh, I don't want to say something that someone's already done before. There's already a billion travel apps. There's already a billion apps that um, teach you different languages. What we do at the
Yeah,
academy is we try to help them use that CBL process to find a unique problem and then find a solution to that unique problem, so that
I
we're
like
not
it.
making the same app over and over.
Like one of the first things you learn when you get into freelancing is how often people want to come up with these really great ideas, and it's like, dude, just take 2 seconds to look on the app store. It's already there.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, it's a little bit hard to communicate that with people who are really set on their idea.
yeah.
But yeah, was there anything else you want to mention about mentoring that you really enjoy or are really surprised by that experience?
Um, I just want to say how proud I am of like the students that I have worked with already. It's been a really great journey to be in this position and to be able to mentor. I've never had an experience like this, so being in education has been a big jump for me. However, it was a lot of fun, to say the least. It was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So besides that, you won the Swift Student Challenge, and congratulations on that. That's awesome.
Thank you, thank you.
And this is specifically for your app. Is it MBT Extreme?
MTB Extreme.
MTB Extreme. Okay,
Yep.
which we'll get into in a little bit. But how'd you find out about that, and like what was that process like? I guess because I'm not totally familiar with how that works.
Okay, yeah, so let me go into context about what the Swift Student Challenge is as well then.
Yeah.
So the Swift Student Challenge is a yearly challenge hosted by Apple themselves, and the idea is to get students from around the world to join this challenge and send Apple some of the projects they've been working on. And so everyone can apply. You just have to be a student at any college and be passionate about mobile development. And so
Okay.
being a part of the Apple Developer Academy, that's what gave me the criteria to be able to apply as a student. And so, about halfway through the academy, we are about 3-4 months in at this point. Our mentors introduced to us what the Swiss Student Challenge was. I was just like you; I kind of had no idea what it was, what the different
Yeah.
rewards were for doing this. And
Yep.
so for some time, I kind of wrote it off and put it in the back of my brain. We were working on challenge 4 or challenge 3 or 4 at the time. And so me and my team were actually super busy with making our application and doing whatever we had to do.
Right.
Now, maybe like a week before, we had someone, one of the design mentors from Apple actually come in, and he gave us a great talk about the Swift Student Challenge, why we should do it, and kind of what it means to Apple themselves when they see students submitting for this challenge. And really, what they kind of told us is that this is your step one, to getting a job at Apple. Like, if you're submitting to the Swift Student Challenge and you have other engineers reviewing and judging your projects, this is what's going to get you a step in the door. for most people. And so when I heard that, I decided to hunker down, take this super serious. However, I only had about 2-3 days left to submit something. And so I had an idea in my head already of what I wanted to do. It was just about making it happen in that short time span.
And yeah, what was your idea? Let's talk about it.
My idea was to bring anyone on a mountain bike with me, or on a mountain bike ride with me. I love biking. It's one of my passions. I go every weekend. And so what I wanted was for everyone to be able to experience that as well, whether you're from here, from around the world, or can't even hop on a bike in general.
How long had the Vision Pro? This is a Vision Pro app, right?
This is actually just an AR experience for the iPhone and the iPad currently.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So did you have to like deep dive into ARKit and stuff?
Yes, yes, and quick too, so that I could create something within those 2 days.
How was that experience?
It was really great actually. I did the augmented reality playgrounds that was offered from Apple, and I got to actually meet the person when I went to DubDub. I got to meet the man who actually made that playgrounds, that Swift Playgrounds, and so,
That's so awesome.
him and I got to talk about it. Yeah, it was really really cool.
Yeah.
But that helped me, as well as looking online just for maybe other people who have done similar projects. I don't know if you've seen the Clash of Clans ad, but there's this one where it was on Facebook for a long time where you're riding Hog Rider. You are a Hog Rider, and so when you look down, you can see the little pig, and you can actually use your phone to look around in the environment. And that's really where I drew my main inspiration from, was
That's awesome.
a Clash of Clans ad.
As somebody who's interested in getting into ARKit, what would you say was the biggest thing you had to get over?
The biggest hurdle, and I still have it now that I am working with Vision OS development, is finding and creating 3D assets. That has been kind of been my main challenge. In the
do you use like Reality Composer for that, or Blender, or what?
Currently, mostly just Reality Composer Pro. I had access to an iPad from the Academy with the LiDAR support, and so all the models that I have created and have been creating have solely just been using Reality Composer, using object capture specifically.
Got it. Yeah. That's awesome. So you won. You got to go to WWDC. Talk about it. What was that experience like?
Yeah, of course. So actually, after the challenge, we had about a couple months downtime, or I'll say 1 month. I'll say we had 1 month downtime for them to, judge all of the different applications, go through and talk about, who they want as a winner or not. And so I really expected nothing out of it. Like I said, I only had a couple days to work on this. And so for my final submission, I kind of threw it in the back of my mind, I might win, I might get something out of it, but I didn't expect anything, like I said, I only had a couple days and didn't think it was the greatest thing that I'd ever made. So I had no idea that it would come to what it came to. When we got the announcements, we were actually in class. And so a couple other learners and I were just sitting there refreshing the site constantly trying to see if, we ended up as a winner for this challenge. Thankfully, my friend Min was around, and he kind of told me that they were uploading the results. We first seen that he was a winner, and we were all super excited. We were all super pumped. And I kept refreshing mine. I didn't see anything at first. And when I looked down, I seen a different screen than what my friend had. I was like, hey, I guess I'm a winner, but it says distinguished. I'm not sure what this means. We looked down a little bit further, and it turns out that Apple themselves wants to fly out 50 other learners as part of the Distinguished Winner program. 50 other learners to go to Apple Park, see the event, WWDC, and they had a bunch of special stuff programmed, just for us 50 distinguished learners to go and see Apple Park on a set schedule. Like, oh my gosh, it was incredible. When we actually got there to California, 49 other learners and I were all in the same hotel. And luckily, my girlfriend and I had a couple of days extra where we spent just exploring California. However, when it came time to the conference, they had us set 7 a.m. We had to be on a shuttle going to Apple Park. The first day we got to explore Infinite Loop. So the original offices where Steve Jobs himself was. And that was a really cool experience because not only did it set the tone for what the conference was going to be like for us, but it really gave us a good idea of how appreciated, I guess, we were by these people at Apple. They had everything laid out for us. Food, water. I mean, you ask and they'll deliver it. They had such a great, amazing team over there, supporting us the whole time, and so it really, truly felt like an award ceremony for us for like 3 days straight.
That's amazing. Anything in particular that you haven't mentioned about that experience?
Yes.
That blew you away? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we actually got a couple like panels from engineers at Apple. So people have been working there for 10, 20 plus years at Apple. We got to hear people tell stories about Steve Jobs and what it was like working with him when he was still with us. We got to hear the actual people who created the Vision OS product, the Visions Pro. We got to hear a panel from them going over how they conceptualized this. I mean, when they were prototyping it, they said they had just a room wall to wall with TVs to try and simulate what this would look like in an actual environment. I just thought stuff like that was just so cool. Not only that, but day 3 we actually got to meet with engineers in our field. They took a look at our projects, determined kind of what team they'd want to send us with, and we got to have a personal conversation walking around Apple Park with these engineers. And I was lucky enough to talk to a couple people from Reality Kit and Reality Composer, and talk about kind of like what I'm learning and put myself out there. It was such a great experience. I really can't vouch for it enough.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds like an awesome time. So what's next for Dezmond? What do you want to work on next, or what are you planning on doing the next few months left? Was there anything from Dub? Have you had time to even like digest what's come out from Dub that you're like, oh, I want to work on this, or has it been too hectic, I guess?
I'll be honest, it's a bit of both. I haven't had a lot of time to actually work on this stuff. However, in my mind, I have a lot of ideas of different projects that I want to work on.
Yeah.
Specifically regarding Vision OS. What I want to do ultimately is use a lot of tabletop kit.
Yeah.
That was one thing they announced that I was super excited for. I'm actually a big board game nerd myself, and so
nice.
I'm constantly, every time I go to a party with friends, I always got a board game on the ready that's quick and easy to play. And so I have a lot of great ideas on tabletop kit that I know would work because I've played these games with friends in an environment where you need a game that's fast and easy to learn.
Yeah. What games are you playing right now?
I'm actually getting into a super complicated one, if you've heard of Warhammer.
Yes.
It's a pretty old game, however, very, very difficult to pick up. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of
How long does it take to set that game up?
Oh, dude, like at minimum like an hour to set up. And that's just getting all your models ready and reading a book on what each and every one does. Like you got to create squads and oh my goodness, it's a bit of a challenge. However, I'm trying to make something like that easier so that anyone can kind of jump in and learn what it's like to play the game.
I mean, you've hit it. Like if you can make it easier to like set up a table with the game, with tabletop kit. I mean, that's where the VR stuff. Yeah, I love touching the things and the cards and the chips and all that characters, but like, what if somebody accidentally knocks it over or,
Specifically with Warhammer too, like a lot of those models get really expensive too. And most people, my friend actually, this is a perfect example of this. They work very hard on painting the models. And so you have these plastic models. You have to sit there and move each and every little part, painting the inside of the legs or like the outside of the armor, putting gold varnish on each and every corner. Like and he does it, and they look beautiful. Those are actually some of the models that I used using object capture. Those were some
Okay.
of the models that I used in the, I guess, test app of this that I've created so far.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I just know Warhammer. I believe the story is Warhammer was the reason why Blizzard had to come up with Warcraft, was because they couldn't get the rights to Warhammer. And that's where like Warcraft and all that stuff came from. Was yeah.
I didn't know that myself.
Yeah, yeah. So there you go. Fact of the day. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about before we close out?
I definitely want to add that if you are a student, and this is something just for any learner out there, actually any age as well, if you're interested in iOS development or just programming in general, I would recommend doing the Swift Student Challenge. Also, kind of, it's a great opportunity for you to get yourself out there and get your projects recognized.
Yeah.
Anything else to add other than that? Not yet. I'm working on some other stuff in my own time. However, I'd like to start a podcast of my own someday. And so I actually kind of have something in the works where I'm creating a blog first. I'm going to start like an email letter. But until then, not yet. Not yet.
One thing at a time. One thing at a time.
Yes.
Takes years. Yes.
It does.
Dezmond, thank you so much for coming on. This was fantastic. Where can people find you online?
You can find me at x.com at DezDoesIOS, DezDoesIOS. You can find me on LinkedIn at Dezmond Blair. That's kind of all the socials that I really use. So
Awesome. It was really great to have you on and talk to you about your experience. I think a lot of us are just happy for you and glad to learn a little bit more about what goes on behind the scenes with the Swift Student Challenge. So thank you for that.
yeah, of course, thanks for having me, Leo. I hope this comes as a good inspiration to any other students who are looking forward to working with Apple in the future, maybe, or just into iOS development.
People can find me on Twitter at LeoGDion. My Mastodon is LeoGDion at c.im. My company is BrightDigit. Just go to brightdigit.com where you can subscribe to our newsletters. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe and like, please. And if you're listening to this on a podcast player, please give us a review. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode, and I look forward to talking to you again. Bye, everybody.